Hey, my name's James Nicholson. Welcome to my YouTube channel. In this video, I want to talk about the really tough dilemma that the Bank of England have this week. You see, they've got their rate meeting on Thursday, and it was expected for quite a while that they would just hold rates. But then we got some inflation data that was lower than expected this month. The inflation data hasn't creeped up for 3 months in a row now, and the unemployment data isn't looking so great either. So looking at all of that, it's a very tough decision, which we're going to talk about right now in this video and give you an indication on where we think the Bank of England will go this week with the rate meeting. Now, if you're new around here and you haven't done already, do subscribe to the channel over there and hit that bell notification. We're on the way to 51,000 subscribers now, and by subscribing, you'll get all the latest house price news, interest rate news, property investing tips, and much, much more. And let's get some views on this video. Well, your part on this is simple. All you need to do is smash like, tickle like, do something to that like button. That really helps with the YouTube algorithm, and that really helps the channel grow. So thanks to everyone that does that. So the Bank of England meeting is on Thursday. And this week's meeting is a tough one because the expectation was that the Bank of England would cut just one more time in 2025. But since then, the inflation data came out and it wasn't as bad as we were expecting. Now, I had my views on that because partly that went towards the pension increases, benefits increases, and all of that stuff. So I was a little skeptical on those numbers, but they are what they were. And so the inflation data that they're looking at was at 3.8% now. And that was the third month in a row that it had stayed at that level. Now, the expectation when the Bank of England last cut rates was in August of this year. And in that meeting, in their press conference, that's when they talked about the fact that inflation was going to go up above 4%. But it hasn't. And so now there's a possibility they'll have more updates with their press conference that we see on Thursday. But maybe we've peaked in inflation now, hopefully, because we want to start moving forward on that and people need to get some affordability back. So that's one thing that they've got to consider is the inflation data isn't as bad as we were expecting. The other thing that we've got to talk about, which they will be considering, is what's happening in America. And so the Americans cut their rate down to 3.75%. Now, we like to be in a range close to the Federal Reserve because if you're massively out of kilter with them, it impacts currency and that makes import and export more difficult, and that will also hit inflation. It could cause deflation. It could cause more inflation depending on which way that goes. So the Fed cut, and that's going to be something that the Bank of England will definitely be talking about in their meeting. The Fed also said that, look, there is a possibility that we will also cut in December. It's not as likely as we first thought. And the reason for that is due to the fact that the American government is closed at the moment. It's been closed for more than 30 days. And so a lot of the data that the Federal Reserve relies on, the inflation data, the jobless data, unemployment data, all of this stuff isn't being produced at the moment because those offices are just closed at the moment. And so the Fed are saying, look, if the government stays shut, which at the moment it's at the longest ever shutdown it's ever had, if it stays shut, then next month, they said that it's like flying into the fog. If you fly into the fog, what you would normally do then is slow down. So they're saying that if they don't have data, that effectively gives them fog, and they would slow down on rate cuts because they don't really know exactly what's happening. Otherwise, it's just guesswork. So that's interesting to see what happens in America. So if the American government suddenly opened this week and we got loads of backdated data and it was bad, for example, unemployment was rising, GDP was down, inflation had actually come down a little bit as well, then that means that Bank of England would be more likely to cut. Other things that they've got to contend with in this meeting is the UK's unemployed data. That's not looking good. I listened to a few podcasts this weekend from Stephen Bartlett of Dragon's Den. Maybe you watch the same ones that I have. And he's had a few guests on recently talking about AI and how none of us can comprehend just how many people are going to lose their jobs due to AI. In fact, they believe it's going to be absolutely terrifying what happens. And nearly every job, in their eyes, according to these guests, could be wiped out by AI or some sort of automation by a robot. Now, I'm not sure where I sit on that. It terrifies me, AI, but I use it every day. I use ChatGPT every single day, and it really does make me more productive. I get a hell of a lot more stuff done. And in my marketing agency, I don't need as many staff as I would have 5 years ago, because it really does improve productivity very, very quickly. And so I could see that the argument is true that unemployment in the UK and around the world could rise exponentially. And that is something that the Bank of England will be talking about and considering, but more short term. They're more looking at what's the unemployment rate at the moment. And the economy is struggling. It is struggling. It's just about avoided a recession for the last few years, but it's been very close. We haven't had any real growth in the UK. And if unemployment keeps going up, that is a consideration, because the Bank of England want to get inflation down but keep maximum employment. So that's a consideration that they've got to go through as well. Is unemployment still rising? Is that a real concern? They'll talk about that and we'll see here. Next is the GDP, the gross domestic product. That's not looking good. In fact, the GDP per person in the UK is expected to be lower than Poland by 2030, which is ironic because it wasn't long ago that Polish people all came to live in the UK for prosperity. Now, there are people that leave the UK and go and live in Poland because it's doing slightly better and growing where we are not growing. And so the GDP isn't looking great. That is on the verge of a recession, and it has been for a couple of years. I think some of the numbers have been fudged to avoid an official recession. So, look, all of this has got to be taken into account. And so the markets are saying that they feel that we will have a hold this week. Me, I'm also saying hold. I think that they will hold just because they probably want to see a few more bits of data. They want to see another inflation report. They want to see some more jobs data, and they're just too slow. They're too slow. They're going to act too slow, too late to get all of this stuff done. I do think they will cut in December, though. I think it's the 16th or the 18th of December. There is a Bank of England meeting. Those dates are both awkward for me to make a video for you, but I still will, because I've got Georgia's birthday on the 16th, my oldest daughter, and I've got Emily's birthday on the 18th of December. So whichever date it is, I'll be busy, but I'll get a content video out for you guys on that day with that. What do you think is going to happen this week? That's what I want to know. Let me know in the comments. And today's the last chance before we launch tomorrow to join our VIP list. We're launching a more advanced property training. It's taken 6 months to film the content for it, going into all the strategies that work at the moment. And by joining the VIP list, you will get first access to that. You're not obligated to buy, but you'll find out about it before anybody else at the best price. So joining the VIP list is free. Hundreds of you have done it already. Do click below to grab a copy, get yourself in the VIP list while you can. And tomorrow, we'll announce all that we've got ready for you guys. So do make sure you tune in for that. Do smash like, do subscribe, and check out all the other content as well on our channel, including this video right here.